Hi there, I'm Bree. I like to read, and this is everything I read in the month of June. I read 7 books this month, which is on the lighter side for me, but I'm not too worried about it because I'm still ahead of schedule for my reading goal for 2024. I'm just taking my time and savoring the lazy, hazy days of summer. June was a really crazy month for me. I was out of town for a week. I went camping on 2 separate weekends, and I ended up just going on a lot of different adventures and not having that much time to sit still and be quiet and read. However, I actively enjoyed every single book I read, so I'm calling it a win. My first read of the month is actually my lowest rated book of the month, and I have to say that I think this is going to be an unpopular opinion because I only gave 3 stars to Just for the Summer. I just don't know what I'm missing here. This is the 3rd book I read by this author, one of my least favorites. I feel like this blew up on the internet a couple months ago and I missed the hype train for it, but when I finally caught up, I still think I missed it. I really expected this to have the dazzling summer vibes that this cover is just drenched in. I also just did not feel the chemistry in this one at all. However, what this book lacks in romance, it makes up for tenfold in character development and a healing journey and character growth. I mean, rom-com, more like trom-com, am I right? My favorite part of this book was actually the friendship. In fact, I would love a book just about Maddie. If you do want to read this book, here is what you can expect. Read this for its online meet cute and a forgivably J-named main male character with golden retriever energy. It is a delightful concept for a romance setup. It is full of compelling side characters and a really interesting plot outside the romance. In fact, I would say the romance is rather secondary to the plot. And last but not least, a tender handling of characters with PTSD and avoidant attachment styles. You can tell that this author definitely consulted with mental health professionals to bless the material inside of this book. If you are looking for a fun, sweet, sun-drenched romance, don't fall for the cover, look elsewhere. However, if you love reading about people evolving and growing and processing trauma and grief, you will definitely appreciate this one. Unfortunately for this book, I have incidentally sandwiched this in between some of my favorite romance novels of the year. It's also perhaps a little unreasonable to compare the kind of clipped, choppy, whiplash-inducing pacing and writing of this to the flowy and gorgeous literary fiction-esque prose of some of the other romance novels that I have been ingesting. Unfairly, I find that I hold romance novels in this category to a higher bar, a bar that is approximately the same height as Emily Henry. Overall, I'm glad I read it, and I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. This Summer Will Be Different is maybe a case of right place, right time, right book, but this book hit, and it hit good. Behold, Carley Fortune's best one yet. I've read all 3 of her books while camping now. It's been a lovely little summer tradition, and I devoured this one creekside, surrounded by fireflies, sleepy dog napping in my lap, and nursing my first sunburn of the season. The soundtrack for me of this book was a crackling campfire, distant laughter, morning bird song. The car windows rolled down and the radio turned up, and I thought the writing in this was gorgeous. I felt absolutely transported to the scenery from the very first page. I didn't ever want to leave Lucy's flower shop or Felix's seaside cottage porch. Every relationship in this was so dynamic. I think the love, interest, inevitability felt like gravity, but at the same time was so fragile. And the sisterhood / friendship in this book was evidence to me that our greatest loves are not always romantic. Here's what you can expect if you pick this up. There is a yearning, pining, star-crossed love story taking place over the course of several summers. This is the perfect, and I mean perfect, summer setting. It will have you craving salty coastal sunsets, chilled white wine, a rereading of Anne of Green Gables, and freshly shucked oysters. This is a coming of age that features the best friend's brother trope as well as second chance romance, and it has alternating timelines and loads of found family. Also, if you've read any of this author's other works, this one is the steamiest one yet, by a lot. Lucy and Felix share a lot of secret touches, longing glances, and palpable yearning that feels a little forbidden to read. If you are looking for the perfect summer romance novel, a love story with a lot of substance, then put this one in your beach bag. This book had me looking up flights to Prince Edward Island. This one also made me cry. I'm curious if I will stand by this rating a year from now, but I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. Eat your normal people loving sad little heart out with Talking at Night. What can I say? I love sad, sparsely written British novels that don't have quotation marks. This is one of those books that makes you feel full and empty and sad and content all at the same time. And actually this one was so sad that I had to stop and put it aside for a while I was traveling for work because that just wasn't the vibe and headspace I needed to be in. I just didn't have that emotional bandwidth available, but when I fell back into it, I fell back in hard. Here's what you can expect if you pick up Talking at Night. Read this one for achingly gorgeous, quiet, melancholic, raw, poignant writing. It is a messy, real journey of mental illness, addiction, grief, depression, identity, and love. It is about two tortured young adults navigating their messy, beautiful, broken lives. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. In June, I picked up one of my favorite books of all time to date, When We Lost Our Heads by Heather O'Neill. I have ranted about this book a couple times now, and I will do it again. If you're gonna pick this up, I recommend you don't try to discern what the plot is about. I think you should just pick it up. Maybe check the content warnings, but otherwise go in blind. Just know that this is set in Montreal against the backdrop of an industrial revolution. It is a brilliantly bizarre novel that tackles gender inequality, gender identity, sexuality, power, greed, privilege, and desire, and class, all in a weird little coming-of-age story about interconnected women of various stations in society. It is a perfectly constructed novel that is full of political and personal drama. I found it to be compulsively readable, filled with mounting high stakes, brimming with provocative commentary. If you're gonna pick this up, you can expect to read a disturbing and weird, delectable story about the violent delights of female desire. You will read from the perspectives of deeply flawed, deeply unlikable, very depraved characters. If you like them, the more detestable the better. You'll love this. And the writing. My God, the writing. This is just dripping with opulence and brutality at every turn. Somehow she writes this to be sharply sweet and grotesque and bawdy all at the same time. It's gauche, it's lavish, it's self-aware, it's just so good. Please read it and let me know what you think. This was my first of Heather O'Neill's books, and it will certainly not be the last. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Dare I say 6 out of 5 stars. This is definitely one of my all-time favorites. I loved it so much. The next book I read was Jurassic Park, and I gotta say, this book is a banger. This is a book that has been wildly eclipsed by everything that it gave way to. When you revisit the source material, it's easy to see why it became the pop culture monolith that it is still today. Even though the characters in this are extremely archetypal and it barely passes the Bechdel test, I think Jurassic Park is imaginative, infamous, and a hell of a lot of fun. I enjoyed the science-y veneer on this and the chaos theory soliloquies almost as much as I enjoyed the suspense at every single turn. And I think it's a sign of a really good techno thriller that entertains the reader while raising paradoxical criticisms that are still relevant even today, decades later. If you're gonna pick up Jurassic Park, here's what you can expect. First of all, dinosaurs. Duh. It is also full of fascinating conversations about the audacity of scientific power and the consequences of discovery. And this is fast-moving, breakneck-paced, compulsively readable, and utterly thrilling storytelling. If you were a dinosaur kid, if you love the movie, or if you love thrilling adventure stories and disaster tales, you should definitely pick up this classic. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Gender Magic by Ray McDaniel, and I loved this. Just a note, a quick disclaimer that I am a cisgender reader who is reviewing a book that is primarily prioritizing transgender and non-binary readers as its target audience. However, this book is for everybody. Anyone who is human, anybody who lives in a gender-constrictive society, and anyone with a body. This is especially for anybody who is interested in stepping outside of the box that they were assigned to, and their family, friends, and allies alike. I rarely enjoy reading self-helpy kind of books, but I really loved reading this one. I can only imagine how magical this book would be in the hands of readers who are undergoing overwhelming change, facing very real anxieties, all while bravely expanding and exploring, even in constrictive environments like the one we live in. This This left me with so many great exercises to stay curious. It led me to reflect on the powerful force of gender in my own life, and it got me excited to celebrate the infinite ways that humans can express themselves, which was especially lovely during Pride Month. If you're gonna pick this up, here's what you can expect. A one-of-a-kind, beautifully affirming, and deeply caring guide to living shamelessly and authentically. It is a magnification of the pleasure, the play, and the possibility in trans and non-binary experiences, and it is full of practical steps to self-respect, healthy coping skills, and stepping into joy, whether you are exploring your own gender identity or not. For any reader, I think that Gender Magic has a lot of actionable steps towards self-respect, self-healing, and it will stay with me for a long time. Of course, I rated this 5 out of 5 stars. Last but not least, I read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This is the same Ali Hazelwood that you know and love, but in a darker and bolder font. No, but really, there is a big tonal shift from her other novels to this one. Instead of the tiny, oblivious, quirkily comedic tone of Ali Hazelwood's typical STEMinist rom-coms, this one is instead raw and tragic and surprisingly a little dark. You should know that I do find the cringy yet witty dialogue and the unflinching millennialisms and the often formulaic quality of her other novels to be extremely comforting reads. I will never criticize them. However, this was a lovely departure from that I think a lot of her readers will find refreshing. If you're gonna pick this up, here's what you can expect. This is still STEM romance. It is dual POV. It is the forbidden romance trope, and he falls first, and there is a lot of trauma recovery in this one. In fact, expect a lot of characters who are carrying heavy trauma, grief, and shame. Also know that this is the spiciest, most erotic, most graphic of Ali Hazelwood's novel to date. I loved reading Rue's chapters. Rue is our female main character who has a lot of social anxiety and a tough time communicating with others, and often people perceive her as cold and aloof and detached, which ironically causes her to withdraw and self-isolate even more. And boy do I love a pining, pathetic, simping main male character who is down bad. Normally I love slow burn novels, and this one was fast and hot. Personally for me, I had a hard time feeling the connection between our main love interests for a good part of this book, outside of the physical connection, I mean. But when we got there by the end, I was in it. I even shed a few tears for Rue. I'll read everything that Ali Hazelwood writes. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. So there you have it. There's everything I read in the month of June. It was a very orange month. No, I really enjoyed nearly everything I read, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the summer has in store. Let me know in the comments what your favorite book that you read last month was. As always, I love to know what y'all are reading. Let me know if you liked this format for a reading recap by giving this video a like. And if you don't want to miss my next video, then you should like this channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. Bye!